The thought that life could be better is woven indelibly into our hearts and our brains.
Hi, hello, and howdy, and welcome to another in our continuing series of personal development and human potential programs, Finding Yourself in Paradise. My name's Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder. And when we talk about paradise, we're talking about a place we call focused passion, a place inside where you feel both safe and powerful, and you can do some amazing things in paradise.
Steve and I, as most of you know by now, have spent the better part of 3 decades each exploring human potential. I guess in the late 60s and 70s, that was the initial term, human potential.
Personal growth, self-development, self-improvement, lots of names for it, but how people consciously choose to get better than they are.
Self-help, sometimes you'll see in the bookstores. And look at the plethora of magazines in the last 20 years, or the percentage of Oprah's guests,
Sure.
for example. This is a huge topic. Increasingly, and thank goodness for this, people want to know who they are and what they are for. And in today's episode of Finding Yourself in Paradise, we're going to address that, aren't we, Steve?
Indeed. We're talking about finding your calling, finding what's right for you to do, finding the thing inside of you that's just begging to be expressed. You've got gifts, you've got talents, you've got abilities. In fact, you've got gifts, talents, and abilities in a combination that no one in the world has ever had before or will ever have again.
Yeah, and I think this is pretty much a guarantee. Steve and I have, over this 3-decade period, worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Steve largely in a corporate setting with CEOs. I've worked mostly with private clients and individuals and couples and some small businesses. But pretty much wherever we go, we find an interest, a burgeoning interest in self-empowerment, and the best sense of the word power, not controlling other people, but managing yourself.
Right, and being empowered to do the best you can do, to be the best you can be.
Right.
And finding what's right for you to do is so powerful inside. It's manifesting the gifts that you were given, and we're convinced everyone's gifted. Although many haven't opened their packages, They all have the gifts. And identifying those gifts, those talents, maybe it's something you were good at when you were a kid, but somehow you got busy and haven't had time to practice it a long time. Or maybe there's probably lots of gifts inside of you that you've never even identified yet. But what we know is this. When you do find those things that are most natural for you to be great at, you'll want to passionately practice with those things. And that's the combination. That's the winning combination. If you find what you're talented at and you passionately practice at it, that's how you get to be the best you can be. I mean, even world class. If you don't have a gift for something, you'll never really be world class because the people who do have a gift have too big of an advantage, and they're going to passionately practice too. You can get to be the best you can be at anything, but we're talking about not just getting to be the best you can be at anything, we're talking about getting the best you can be at the thing you're best at being, and that's your calling, your true self, call it your purpose, your meaning, or you can call it your raison d'etre, your reason for existence, but inside of each of us,
I always wondered what that meant.
That's what it means. Raison d'etre means reason for existence. And you've got one, or maybe many, because you can manifest one calling for 5 years and another one for the next 8 and the next one for the next 13. It's not like there's only one thing you get to do in this whole world.
Sure. There's avocations as well as vocations. You don't have to necessarily make your living at your calling, but it sure is a smart thing to do.
It feels great when you can. We've been so very fortunate because we've been doing this virtually since we got out of high school.
Yeah,
we've been doing what we love for a living.
We love it, yeah, because nothing fascinates me more. And then when I met Steve in the late 1970s, and he'd read pretty much all of the same books and arrived at many of the same conclusions. And yet you and I have always had, in spite of, or maybe better said, in addition to, all of the areas where we agree, a really healthy uniqueness about our individual points of view as well, which I love, I
Absolutely.
think.
We come to much the same places from many different directions. Our minds work very differently, but we often most usually come to similar conclusions.
Well, the whole idea that we're different, I'd like to go to at the top of this program on calling, because, again, I I feel very strongly there's overwhelming evidence that everybody's got one. Everybody is here on a mission.
Many, but nobody's devoid of one, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In other words, we're in a cause-effect universe. Things always happen for a reason. Nothing just happens without a cause behind it. And so each of us exists for a reason. We're not just accidents. Now, there's many different points of view, countless points of view on that creative process, that spiritual process. And some of those we can explore in other programs. But just consider the fact that the universe is, and there's enough research to prove this now, I think, incredibly, remarkably diverse. That this universe will not even create two snowflakes that are exactly alike, much less two individuals, and we've got fingerprint evidence and now DNA proof of our individuality.
We even call ourselves individuals, you know. We don't call ourselves the collective. We're not the Borg, you know. We're all different. We're all absolutely unique. And not only are we different from everybody that's living now, we can say with quite great certainty we're different from anybody that ever lived before or will ever live again.
So if I was exactly like you in every way, or vice versa, one of us is redundant.
Yeah, well, it's like two jigsaw puzzle pieces that are exactly the same and both fit only in that same spot. You don't want that.
Yeah, they put in an extra piece
right.
in case you
drive you nuts.
Just happen to lose that one particular piece. And again, conformity. Everybody struggles with this as a teenager, and some people for their entire lives. So in need of acceptance, approval, respect, and love from other people that we'll jump through hoops and sometimes even betray our best interests and our true nature if it means getting accepted by other people. And, of course, it might seem at times to work, but that's futile. That never really provides any kind of meaning or fulfillment and doesn't address...
It certainly leaves your happiness up in the hands of other people and not yourself, and that's not where you want to be.
Yeah, no, we got to please ourselves. And, again, this is a delicate line to walk because too much pleasing yourself without regard to others would obviously be out of balance. But Steve and I talked last week about when you're in tune with who you really are, when you're sensitive to who you really are, your self-interest always includes other people.
Right, because who you really are is part of all the other people, too. You know, who you really are is a human being, part of the sea of humanity, and it's always in the best interest of who you really are to do things that are good for everyone.
And that's one of the great paradoxes of life, that both of these concepts are true. We are unique.
Yes.
And we are part of one thing at
yes.
work.
Yes.
And both things are true. And that's your little puppy in the background. We should mention that we also have wind and waves in the background, that we're coming to you from one of our favorite locations, the birthplace of FocusedPassion.com, Maui, Hawaii. We're on the northeast shore, and it's a beautiful day, but you'll hear the wind and the waves. You hear the puppy in the background, and who knows, you might even hear whales this afternoon. It's wintertime as we bring this to you.
Oh, and that whale sounds so wonderful.
Yeah, you can hear the sounds and the tails flapping sometimes. Steve and I have spent so much time dreaming of paradise in our mind's eye that it was inevitable that we would end up in a physical paradise as well. But finding yourself in paradise, of course, is about using these wonderfully receptive, altered states of expanded consciousness and higher awareness to manage your emotions, as we discussed last week, to be more clear in your thinking and more appropriate in your behavior. And today, again, focusing on the idea of calling. And I think pretty much we have to begin with this idea that I think diversity establishes that each of us is unique. Each of us has a reason to be. Each of us has a calling. We're on a mission to be who we are. It's an adventure of self-discovery, a personal quest that we could not delegate to somebody else.
Nope.
You have to grow up. You have to leave mom and dad behind. You have to go out into the world. And besides that common mission that people seem to be on, to make enough money to pay their bills and maybe get ahead and such, much more importantly than the material side of life is self-discovery and realization.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the real currency in life is happiness much more than money.
Oh, nicely said.
You know, if you think about it, not having any money is really bad. I mean, it's really hard to be happy with no money at all. It's hard to think about, like, what's my calling? I mean, you got to pay the bills. If you don't have any money, that really is bad. But, you know, having enough money or having a whole lot of money has really nothing to do with happiness. Every study proves that once you're past the I've got enough stage, a lot or a whole lot or a big whole lot, it doesn't really matter. But doing what you love to do, finding your calling, finding your gift, finding your passion and expressing that in the world, that's maybe the number one or two cause of happiness. The other one would be who you're doing it with. You know, but doing the things that are right for you to do with the people that's right for you to be doing it with, that's the key. That's the bottom line of it all. So we need to discover, and we can, in paradise, we can discover what that calling or those callings are. Because, again, maybe there are several things that you can do, huge things you can do in your life over the course of the rest of your life. And you got to figure out which one you're going to do first and which one you're later, you know, and not even second, just which ones you're not going to do first, and then do that one now. And it doesn't deny the ability of doing others. And there's one simple concept that always came to me that when I think about this, because people are paralyzed when they think about, you know, going for a career because they're afraid if they go in one direction, it's the wrong direction, and all that time will be wasted. But it's like they're afraid to move toward anything until they totally understand exactly what the right answer is and how to get there. But we really don't have to know that much to understand our calling. For example, let's say you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, what you want to do for a living. So you ask yourself, here I'm in the middle of 360 degrees. I don't know which way to go. How do I find out which way to go? So you ask yourself two questions. One, do I want to work for myself or do I want to work for other people? You know, okay, whichever answer it is, you got half of the jobs out of the way, and now you can focus on only half of the possibilities. Now ask yourself, in this job, either for myself or for other people, with other people, do I want to spend most of my time by myself, or do I want to spend most of my time interacting with other people? Now you've eliminated half of the half. So now you got only 90 degrees of possibilities instead of 360. Any step you take is the right direction. Any step you take toward a career that has both, I want it to be working for myself and I want it to be working with people. Any career that has those two things in common, you're moving toward every step you take in that direction.
That's really nice, Steve. I think we should spend a little time going over that because, I mean, I've seen some similar paradigms in personal development, but I think most people don't even consider that there might be some sort of scheme or formula or model that they could use because, well, frankly, I think the pressures, economic pressures on people, especially today, keep, even if they are high-minded, keep pulling us back toward the belief that, no, man, it's about money, and yeah, I really wanted to be this or that or the other thing, but it's not practical, and you can't make any money, and no, I got to put all my energy, whether I'm in my 20s, my 40s, or my 60s, in something where I can make some money and get ahead and get a little house and use that to leverage up and so on. Suffice to say, I think the very most important point here in talking about calling is that that's the reason you exist. You're not here to buy stuff. Right. I think most people by their, mid-30s figure that out. There's got to be more than earn and spend and produce and consume, but
you do deserve to eat well and have good shelter and have good transportation. You do deserve to have all of life's basics for sure. Right. No doubt about that. It's all that extra stuff that maybe you're trading for happiness. You know?
Well, so I think people are saying, well, okay, fine, there's got to be more to life than materialism, but I'm just not sure what. And what you and I are saying is it's self-discovery.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And you are sure what. You just haven't listened yet.
You have to honor that, because we all have it as kids. We all have dreams as kids.
Sure.
A good question to ask ourselves in reflection and contemplation is, when did I give up those dreams? When did I stop wishing? When did I become so realistic and so practical that I started living other people's dreams and their expectations as if that could somehow indirectly bring me around to happiness?
Yeah.
And it doesn't work.
No, that definitely doesn't work. Happiness, as we talked about in the previous show, isn't a do thing. You can't do happiness. Happiness is a be thing, and it's inherent within you. And one of the things that allows you to experience the nature of yourself, the happy nature of yourself, is moving in the direction that's right for you to move in, is to be knowing where you are, knowing basically where you're going, and feeling like you're going there. That feels great. That feels happy.
So go over this again, this little deductive process of elimination that you described for helping us at least get a sense of the target.
Exactly. Most important concept is when you're overwhelmed with too many choices, which is not usually the problem. Sometimes the problem is not enough choices or no choices, but sometimes you're overwhelmed like, what do I want to do as a career? You're overwhelmed with too many choices. Then you have to chunk down. You have to make less choices so that it becomes easier to choose. So here's the bottom line of this paradigm. Imagine you're standing in the middle of a circle of 360 degrees of possibilities, every job in the world out there. You could go in any direction. What direction do I go? So you ask yourself, do I want to work for myself? Do I want to be my own boss? Or do I want a guaranteed paycheck? And there is something in the middle called like commissioned salespeople, that's sort of halfway in between. Where do I want to go on that scale of how much risk do I want to take and how I'm responsible for making my own money versus how safe do I want to be in terms of guaranteeing a salary? So you choose.
Or needing guidance, perhaps.
Yeah.
Not
ready to go on your own.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
In that place in life where obviously being an employee is better at this point. So make your business somebody else's business. Where are you going to work? Your business, somebody else's business. Make that choice. Now you got half of the possibilities eliminated. And you're focusing on, let's say, for this example, you want to have your own business. Okay. Now, I want to have my own business. I want to be in charge of my own income. Now, do I want to spend most of my time, not all of my time, but most of my time, by myself doing my thing, or interacting with other people, like in a team or selling things or, whatever? Do I want to spend most of my day by myself or with other people? Pick one of those. Let's say I want to spend most of my day with other people. So now I know I want to have my own business and I want to spend most of my day with other people. Now I've eliminated 3/4 of the possibilities, or I only have 90 degrees left of that 360, right? I've quartered it up, and now I have 1/4 available. The quarter that includes I want to work for myself and spend my time with other people. If you look you're in the middle of the circle, now you see like a triangle heading out with the apex right at where you're standing.
I got you.
Every step you take is in the right direction. Because that's where you're headed. It's only that little 90 degrees. Every step you take is in the basic right direction.
So you're narrowing your focus.
Exactly. And now let's say
almost like a camera zooming in.
Right. So I'm standing there and I'm saying to myself, okay, I know I want to work closer than 50 miles to my house. I don't want to go drive more. Now I've eliminated some more. Now I can zoom in a little more. I know I want to work with a company that I want to have my own company, and I want to have employees that I can trust and that are honest, and I know I can get them from this source, these people that I know and these in industry. So now I've eliminated a little more, and now I know I want to work with a service, not a product, and you can just narrow down your focus, and eventually every step you take is in the right direction, and eventually something will come. Like the name of the job, the name of the career will come. And that might even morph a little bit. Or maybe like you'll say, oh, I know what it is. I'm going to sell the information I have and the knowledge I have about this subject. I'm going to teach people this stuff. That's what I'm going to do with my... So then it narrows down to, oh, well, here's how I'm going to market that. Here's how, and it gets narrower and narrower the more you learn and ask.
An excellent mental approach. Let's add to it.
Okay, let's add to it. How do you know the answer to the basic questions? Do I want to work for myself or do I want to work for others? How do you know which way to narrow things down, which is the right thing to narrow out? Not because you think it's the right thing, because it feels like the right thing. And that's the bottom line of all of this, is that your calling is not something you can identify with deductive reasoning, with logic, with thought. It's not like there's a menu of callings out there, and if you can just determine all of the rest of them aren't yet, the one that is going to be on that menu. You can't find it that way, because your calling is not on any menu. It's your own, different than anybody else's. So you got to go inside and find out what your subconscious mind wants, your heart mind wants, and the way you do that is a meditation kind of process, a introspection kind of process, Some people call it prayer, but it's a process of going inside and asking and listening and finding out from yourself, from your heart, from your emotional mind, what feels right. That's the way you find the answer to all of the questions about your calling, is what feels right.
And stay tuned for that audio journey, that guided imagery, meditative exercise that we're going to do for you in just a few minutes on this topic, calling. We're talking about calling. Now, Steve just laid out a really nice mental, deductive, logical, reasonable construct, really valuable, but then hasten to add, hey, there's an emotional component. There's a feeling that goes with this, too. So I was thinking, here's an exercise I often gave people who had so-called career crisis. I would say, money is not an issue. You're going to have to imagine what it would be like to have so much money that you have to hire people to manage it for you, right? Somebody said, what's your worth? You'd have to think for a minute to really comprehend it. You have so much money or an income stream that is guaranteed, such security that you're not even considering money. That's
so you get to do anything you want to do.
And you've traveled the world, you've visited all the sites, maybe you've got a house on every continent and a different car in every garage in every one of those houses. And one day you're laying by the pool in the back of one of your Mediterranean villas, and you are bored to tears.
What do I do now?
And that's the question. What would you do if you were so set that you had to face the need that we all have, which is to do what we want to do? Once everything else is, all the pretense is stripped away. And notice how directly it speaks to who am I as this unique individual.
Indeed.
That my reason to exist uniquely with my particular combination of gifts and talents is to realize those gifts and talents. To, as the ancient Greeks said, know thyself.
Know thyself.
Lao Tzu said the same thing in China about the same time. Africa, Middle East, this is perennial wisdom, that life's about growth, but the growth that comes from understanding yourself both mentally and emotionally, and that, of course, leads to spiritual growth.
Yes, and we all have the same purpose, which is growth, which is mental growth, emotional growth, spiritual growth, all kinds of growth. What we have to understand, the personal aspect of the introspective question is, what's the meaning?
I think so.
What's the meaning? Why am I growing this way?
These words get thrown together, the meaning and purpose of life. I think that's a Monty Python film.
Yeah, they're different things.
They are different. So let's capitalize purpose.
Yeah, purpose. The purpose is to become the best you can be, or to get better and better, or whatever. The purpose is to grow. To
grow, to evolve, to unfold, to be created,
and uncover,
perpetually created.
Yeah.
The idea that we sometimes see in Judeo-Christian mythology and religion is that the creation took 6 days. As if on the seventh day, I understand the day of rest, but on the eighth day, certainly creation continued. We can see it here in Hawaii.
Those volcanoes are bubbling up, making more island every day.
New golf courses as we speak.
Not on this island, but over there.
Just a short ways from here, there's an unfolding. Even this planet, imagine this planet is still cooling. Everything grows. The mineral kingdom grows. Certainly the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom.
Grows real fast here. That plant kingdom. Man. I have to mow the lawn here weekly.
We're talking about spiritual growth, or at the very least psychological growth, in addition to the acquisition of knowledge and understanding the world around. We've got to understand the world within. I think this is largely what the transcendentalists, the American authors Emerson and Thoreau and Walt Whitman and John Muir were talking about. They're saying, America's a new country, great, vast frontier out there to be discovered and not conquered so much as just domesticated and civilized and in balance with nature. But hey, guys, there is a transcendent, there is an inner frontier here that needs to be realized, that needs to be developed. that needs to be domesticated or civilized, this inner self, this higher self, and saw that as spiritual in nature, that longing to know who we are. So, again, that speaks directly to calling, and Steve and I think that your uniqueness, your DNA proof that every individual is exactly that, a unique individual, is evidence that you must have a calling.
That's right. So ultimately, if you did it all right, that is, if you discovered who you really are and got passionate about who you could be and started practicing and blossomed and unfolding, just like if you became the best you could be and were in touch with your thoughts and your feelings, if you could imagine that, then that's the first step in making the whole thing happen. That, what would it be like? I mean, the first thing you have to do to change is to want to motivate yourself to. So you can sort of got to see the event. What would it be like if you actually were doing exactly what you were sort of meant to do, or felt the best doing, or what would it be like?
How much happiness can you handle?
Yeah, well, let me tell you personally, all I know is that there's more. It's like when you think you've hit the happiness peak, there's more. There's more. I'm in the position you were talking about. I mean, I don't have financially to do anything ever again as long as I live. I'm set for life. And yet, what am I doing? I'm doing the same thing I've been doing for 40 years now, which is going out. I'm doing it less often. I'm staying home more often, but I'm going out on the road a couple of times every year. I go out maybe 4 or 5 times a year and hit the road and do a week or two out there because I love doing it. And mostly I'm staying here at home with my wife and creating this wonderful paradise with us. But the bottom line is, even though if you had all the money, if you had everything in the world, are you doing what you would be doing? And if not, you deserve to do that. Now,
yes.
You may have some dues to pay before you get there. You may have to save some money up or apprentice or go to school. You may have to do who knows, but one day you deserve to do that. You deserve to do what you love to do, and our contention is the way to get there is to start loving what you're doing now, or at least part of what you're doing now, learning how to experience the feeling of loving what you're doing.
Love life.
Loving life. And that teaches you how to move toward getting what you really love to do for a calling.
Love what you do until you can do what you love.
Yeah.
But believe in what you care about. Believe in who you are and that you really have, again, at the very least, psychological, if not philosophical or spiritual meaning available to you. And that's the missing piece for most people. It's one thing to be poor and unhappy. That's hard. That can be excruciating, the grinding effects of poverty. But imagine being wealthy and miserable.
There's no excuses then. It's harder, actually.
It's much harder.
I mean, because if you're poor, at least you could blame it on society,
on your
or
poverty,
economy, or your poverty. But if you got all the money and then you're still unhappy, who are you going to blame it on?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And so, again, evidence that it's not about how much or how little money you have. The happiness, the contentment, the joy, the peace of mind, the love, all of the qualities. I mean, all of the qualities that everyone is looking for is contained in a dedication to the process of self-discovery. And that requires abandoning blame or finding some sort of refuge. Let's talk about this just a little bit because it's so big. Investing in our powerlessness. I remember a guy calling my radio show once, and it was a late-night show in Los Angeles, and this guy says, "Michael, I really need your help." And I said, "Well, if I can, what's up? What's going on?" He said, "I get a real problem. I've talked to some people. I just don't know what to do about it. People make me get into fights."
They do.
Yeah, I was dumbstruck.
People make you get into fights. Yeah. And you didn't. He didn't have anything to do with that, of course. That was just something that people did to him.
Well, when I began to point that out to him, I saw the resistance. You understand what I'm saying?
He called me a bad name, or he provoked me this way, and that has to be responded to by hitting him.
He started squaring off with me.
Right.
Because
How could I not?
Yes, defending his behavior in such a way that you could see him making a case for Now I'm going to make him, although it was over the radio, I couldn't really hit him or anything, but here it came again. And so his ultimate defensiveness was a fear of being responsible. Yeah. And what I attempted to point out to the young man was that responsibility is not a burden, responsibility is a freedom.
Wow, it's powerful. It's not powerless, it's powerful.
And so the responsibility to find and place meaning in your life, to discover your calling, you see, not only feels good, but I think benefits everybody concerned because, as we said, both things are true. Each of us are diverse, unique individuals, and we're part of this one thing at work. Just like ecology, there's a spiritual ecology where, the big fish eats the smaller fish, and then the bird eats the big fish that ate the smaller fish, and plants exhale oxygen and inhale carbon dioxide, and humans and animals do the opposite. This beautiful balance, this symbiosis that is strong because of its diversity.
Right.
And when the gene pool gets weak in any given species,
or you get too many lawyers or something. Yeah, that's exactly right.
The strength and the power of diversity, I think it's fundamental to American principles because we're a pluralistic society, and we understand that our freedom comes from having many cultures and many traditions and many belief systems, and we're supposed to honor and protect those differences. And somehow I think the environment of fear that we're in the early 21st century makes that difficult for people. They get defensive. They see people as, you're not me, you're them. You're part of some other group that is not this, but you're that. Right.
But think, if you're doing what you love, if you're doing your calling, the people you're going to be hanging out with also love that thing you're doing and are much more likely to be like you instead of being them, And all of a sudden, because now you have something in common, whether they're from this country, this religion, that color, you have this thing in common. You have this passion you all share for this thing that's your calling. And so there's much more peace and harmony than if you're trying to fit yourself in doing a job that's not you. And those people that are doing that job, they're nothing like you. They have nothing in common with you because it's not you to be doing that job. So if you want to create harmony, do what you love to do. You'll be hanging with people who love that stuff too, and it'll be much more peaceful.
So I guess we could say another clue here to finding your calling and putting meaning into your life as a unique individual is understanding that what John Milton, I think, said, no man is an island. Yeah. We're part of a network, of a community, and it's not either or. It's got to be that classic win-win situation. We have to consider the success of our customers.
Right.
As part of our own success.
Right, and our employees and their families.
Exactly, and our own family and the impact and finding balance. Some women and men work far too many hours and rationalize it by saying, well, I need the extra money to pay the bills so the family can be happy. What family? Nobody's ever home. Yeah. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, well-intentioned. But Americans got to learn, and other societies too, are way, the Japanese, I was reading an article.
Especially when we have little kids. We really need to spend a lot of time with little kids.
When their hair starts falling out, reports of children being so stressed that they're losing their hair, and cutting, when kids start cutting on themselves. And I mean, so much of the...
That doesn't happen by itself. There's bad parenting going on there,
Well, we're in absence of parenting.
Well, that's bad parenting.
It is.
I mean, that's about as bad a parenting. Separation anxiety may be the most fearful experience little kids have. If nobody's there, that's scarier than somebody being there being abusive for many kids. Abandonment is just one of the most horrible experiences little babies can have.
So if we could agree, as Steve and I are proposing here, that self-awareness, finding your calling, learning to express creatively in a life-affirming way who you are and what you're really about, recognizing how that impacts and includes everybody around you, that's got to trump money and stuff.
It's got to trump more than you need money. I mean, you got to.
Once survival.
Once survival's handled. I mean, you got to pay the bills money.
Right.
That trumps everything else. That's meat in the cave.
Well, this is Maslow, isn't it?
Yeah, this is right. Hierarchy.
Why don't you run through that?
Well,
Do you
no.
remember
The bottom line is simple: that survival, and then comes competence, and then comes mastery. I mean, that's a simplified version. But bottom line is, you got to handle the survival stuff first, and then you got to get good enough, okay enough at everything you have to do, including like paying the, and then when you're okay, when everything's not falling through the cracks and you're not, your life's not falling apart, you got to come. Then you can focus on your mastery, your calling, your gift, and we do have to handle survival first. So yeah, money. Only the amount of money you need to have a nice place to live and bills paid, and not having all that extra stuff. That's not going to make you happy. But beyond that, you're right. Focus on finding what you love to do, and amazingly, the money will follow. I mean, if you're not focusing on the money, you may not make as much money at what you love to do as you could have made at something you don't love to do. But the odds are you'll make a hell of a lot more, I think.
We're back to the middle way.
Yeah.
Steve and I talk about this again. It's perennial wisdom. It's found in all philosophies. This idea of the confusion around the difference between the road, the means, the way, and the destination. And often we get those two confused. For example, the idea that success is a way to be happy, we discussed a few weeks ago. Makes sense, right? How are you going to be happy? Well, if I'm successful, that's a way to be happy. But in fact, Stephen, what does the research prove?
Well, happiness is a way to be successful.
Very different.
It's really a very different concept, isn't it? That unhappy people are very rarely successful. Happy people are successful, but you don't get happy by being successful. Actually, what happens, because I'll tell you, I spent most of the last 20 years working with mostly CEOs, mostly presidents and owners of companies in 96 countries around the world. I've worked with tens of thousands of very successful men and women, and a lot of them are happy, and a lot of them are miserable, very unhappy, burdened by their money, overwhelmed by their legacy, trying to keep up with their dad or having to prove their son, and boy, it's just... There's a lot of happy people that have a lot of money. There's a lot of unhappy people that have a lot of money. That's the same about everything. So that's not it. And happiness is a more important currency than is money. Once the basics are paid. So finding what you love, finding and doing what you love. A lot of very successful people are very successful because they found what they loved, and because they loved it so much, they had so much energy for it. They put so much into it, and they made it happen.
So the calling, our theme for this show, which we're saying is the meaning of life, is the way or the path or the means to which we arrive at purpose, which is growth and unfoldment. So we could say your calling, your meaning, to follow your heart's desire, okay? To do what you really care about, to become what you really always want, to reclaim those dreams and dream even bigger dreams. I think it's Thoreau that said, build your castles in the sky and then put foundations under them. Right. There's plenty of room for logic and well, let's look at the downside here and consider, what would happen, lessons learned. I believe in all of that stuff.
But worry once is a great philosophy.
Let's start with a dream.
Right.
And then we'll, it's so odd, especially in this culture, that if people say to you, be realistic, what they're saying is think negatively, focus on the problem. Right. And those of us who say, no, it's much better if, after having done a little bit of that, you begin to focus on the solution. You dream the dream. They say, "Oh no, that's you got to get your head out of the clouds, Michael. Get your feet on the earth here. Stop dreaming up solutions. Get down here with us miserable people, and we'll all focus on the problem together."
If you're actually going to be realistic, that means you can only go with what we have now, knowledge. There's no room for making anything new up if you're going to be real. Einstein said imagination is more powerful than knowledge. So,
That's right.
So what's real is very limiting. What's real is only what exists now. What about everything you imagine isn't real? So, no, don't be realistic. Understand what real is. But if you want to talk about your calling, you can't be realistic because that means you have to do what you're doing. You have to be, you have to be passionate about discovering what's possible. not just what is.
If you're going to keep doing what you've been doing, thinking what you've been thinking, feeling the way you've been feeling, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting.
Well, yeah, Einstein said doing the same thing and expecting a different result, that's insanity.
I think it'll certainly lead to insanity after a while. I think Henry Ford called that working on his assembly line, but that too has its challenges. Well, the puppy's telling us that it's time to do the alpha process here. In dog talk, he says, I want to go to paradise. I want to learn a skill set. That's what we're talking about. An exercise, a guided imagery experience. We call them audio journeys that will take you to a level of mind through breath and relaxation where you can really get a feeling for what we're talking about. And again, the mind is always important to have especially a quiet, discerning mind. The word I want, acumen, I think, is the word that I'm trying to think of. To be really like sharp knife, or a perfectly clear glass. The mind is very important, especially when it comes to discerning the heart. And this is where the real you is bound up. This is where, in addition to the logic that Steve and I have presented to you here today in this discussion of calling, it's really there as a feeling. You know, it's in there. Maybe you've felt it. Maybe you've tasted it. Maybe you've seen a little glimpse of it, but you gave up the dream. Or maybe you got confused because you were more worried about, could I really be successful at this? Could I really make enough money at it to support myself and the family and so on and so forth? Let's show you a really practical way that you can practice by retaining this program on your computer or your portable media player, that you can practice and even share with friends. That's cool. We think that's just fine. To come in touch with and then reinforce ever more clearly. Remember, you get to change your mind.
And you get to have more than one calling.
That's
Not
right.
at a time, but in your life.
They may have very similar meanings.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Close your eyes and relax.
Take a deep breath. And as you release, remember what it feels like when you see something you think's really beautiful, or something that just makes you feel the love. That's the feeling you get when you know the answer is the right answer. When you're looking for answers like, is this right or is that right? The ones that come with that feeling that you feel when you feel beautiful, when you feel love, when you feel joy, that's how that mind communicates to you the answer is yes. So we're looking for that experience of how it feels when you want to smile, when your body wants to be straighter and your chest puffs out and your shoulders go back and it just feels good. We're looking for that feeling. It's an affirmation of, yes, this is the right answer. So begin to feel that feeling as your body relaxes into feeling safe. And feel appreciative of the wonders and the beauties in the world.
And you can imagine that someone you know and love very well has just handed you a sleeping baby, their brand new little baby. And the baby is in a deep sleep as they hand you this infant.
And you feel like you know exactly how to hold this baby safe in your arms.
Feel the peace. And acknowledge your ability and willingness to feel that peaceful.
Feel the peace.
Experience the truth that in vulnerability we find truth and strength. In vulnerability, we accept our power, not to control other people, but to manage yourself and your growth, your evolution, your unfoldment. in peace, vulnerability, receptivity. It's so much easier to recognize the right thing for you to do and to have and to be.
You must feel safe. Survival must be handled. There must be freedom from the stress of physical tension, emotional anxiety, and mental confusion. And you must experience the physical relaxation, the emotional calmness, and the mental clarity that comes with this state of focused passion. And as you do, the feeling like it feels like love, or it feels like beauty, or it feels like joy is the feeling we look for when we ask ourselves, is this the way? Is that the way? Is this what's right for me? And know that you deserve to know what's right for you to do. And the answer is inside of you, and it will come to you if you request. Inside of you knows how to be your best, so we're going to ask and listen, and see and think and hear and feel and know. The purpose, we understand, is to grow. But the way, the direction, the speed, the agenda in that growth, that's where the meaning comes through. So take a look to the meaning as your calling comes through.
In your mind's eye, and to the best of your ability, effortlessly, allow yourself to imagine, how would it feel to wake up in the morning looking forward to the day? Jumping out of bed, and you just can't wait to get to work.
Although it doesn't even seem like it's work, because you could be doing anything you want, and this is what you choose.
Jackson Browne was on my radio show a few weeks ago, and he talked about going to work, which means he goes to his studio where his piano is and his guitars are, and he practices being a rock star.
James Barrie, the guy that wrote Peter Pan, he said it's only work if you'd rather be doing something else.
There you go. You get to have that. You can do that. Steve and I do it every single day. We've both been blessed. Me with a dual career, really, personal development and radio. Steve with all of his public speaking and seminars and teaching and train the trainer trainings.
All the work with the students, all the school teachers, for many years, school teachers. I love working with school teachers.
We're here to tell you it can be done, and the universe wants you to do it. There's a cosmic wind at your back. The universe, all that is divine, will support you and conspire with you when you follow your heart's desire.
When you do what you love to do. So allow that information, that understanding, that you'll know it's right when it feels right, when it feels like love, when it feels like joy. And ask yourself to allow yourself to know, to understand, to get, to grok, understand in fullness what it is you're supposed to be doing, what your heart is calling for you to do. That's why it's your calling. Your heart is calling for you. So listen to the heart call. And what does it say? What do you hear? What do you know? What do you know? Who do you want to be with? Where do you want to be? How do you want to feel? What do you want to create? Who do you want to touch? How do you want to experience your day? You don't have to know the name of the career path. You just need to know, how does it feel to go that way? And which way is that way? Ask yourself, which way is that way? The right way for me.
To feel like this all the time. And say to yourself, I can do this. I can handle this. I can learn from what other people call mistakes or even failures. I could learn from those and keep going. I can change my mind. I can fine-tune and adjust as I get closer and know more and more. I can do this. I can handle this. And what's more, I deserve this.
And I know that if I simply take one step toward this, I will have created momentum. I will now have inertia. I will now be much more likely to take that next step forward than I would be to rock back to my initial position. So all I need to do is take a baby step. Just the tiniest of steps. No chance of failure. Only success is possible with such a baby step. Any step gives you the momentum to continue on. So get in touch with what feels right and take any step in that direction, and you have the universe at your back, the wind at your sails, moving you with inertia, moving you with momentum forward, onward, toward what you want. And remember, not an arrow, one shot, having to hit that target, but rather a guided missile that can course correct on the way and choose new aspects of the calling, even new callings one day.
A focused passion, once in motion, tends to stay in motion.
It does. And it tends to stay in motion in the direction you're directing it to stay in motion. You're going to grow. You get to choose in what direction and how quickly.
See it in your mind's eye. Focus. Nourish your heart's desire with love, gentleness, peace. Let go. Allow your success to manifest. Allow your calling to express as meaning in your life. And all things will follow. Know it effortlessly. Just allow yourself to experience it. And bring it with you. As we bring you back up into full consciousness, as if floating up in a beautiful hot air balloon, just feel yourself drifting up, bringing with you effortlessly. No holding on required, no holding on needed. Just let yourself float up, slowly higher, bringing with you this wonderful feeling of knowing your calling and committing yourself in a loving and gentle way to becoming the truth of who you are.
Take one step. Take one step toward, and the manifestation begins. Take one step toward, and you are no longer what you were, but you are your calling in process. As it gets comfortable now, take a deep breath. Become aware of your surroundings. Get in touch with your physical body. How's it feel? Shrug your shoulders a little bit. Another deep breath, and bring yourself back to wide awake.
The new you, the true you, as we always say.
Absolutely.
There you go. Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this. We hope, as I said a few minutes ago, that you'll share this with your friends. Go ahead, make copies. We know that by sharing this information, by passing the torch and letting folks affirm the good news, because, again, we know this stuff. We just don't get nearly enough affirmation from media and from other people. And whether you burn this to CD or attach it to an email and send it to a friend, that's great. But we just want to encourage everybody eventually, if you really, really like it, then let us deliver it to you, basically for the delivery charge of 99 cents a week, billed monthly. And
just go to focusedpassion.com and podcast it right to you.
Focusedpassion.com, 99 cents a week, billed monthly, for a program that runs roughly 55 minutes, 50 minutes to an hour every week.
Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. One of the things about podcast and not broadcast radio is we can be flexible a little bit, and so could you. But, you know, I think if you close your eyes and go back to this place regularly, this paradise place inside, I think if you check your emotional messages, you'll find that your heart's calling.
Very nice. Check these messages first. Thanks for listening, and for Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. As always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other.
See you next time.
The thought that life could be better is woven